Steve Pulaski, Joe Viso, and Dominic Guanzon are talking Black Panther. Again, a lot to get into with this Black Panther. That's why I'm kind of letting you guys kind of tell me where you want to take this. I know Joe brought up a point that I really want to address too, and I totally agree. Michael B. Jordan in this film, who plays Killmonger in this. We were talking about this. You made the claim that you said this is probably your favorite Marvel villain.
Yes.
And honestly, I could agree. This was the first time, at least in a long time, that I found that a villain was sound and substantive in a Marvel movie.
And the thing is like, he kind of reminds me of why I like the Vulture, and I wish the Vulture was explored in this more, is that he has a very reason as to why he's a villain. Even though I don't agree, and I think he's a sociopath, I understand where he's coming from. And to me, when you can make a villain where it's like, I understand where they're coming from, but they need to be stopped, you've made a great villain.
Yes, I really agree with that.
I think what makes Killmonger such a great villain is that you really people can actually relate to his struggle and his motives.
Yeah.
Even though like he's like legitimately an evil person, people can relate to it. Unlike Loki or the Guardians of the Galaxy
Or
villains.
like evil and just an abstraction of evil
Yeah.
too. Just like the typical motives and stuff.
What makes Loki a great
Positioned
villain
from the start.
for a lot of people is Tom Hiddleston's character.
Right.
I mean, Tom Hiddleston's performance.
Sure.
Along with some of the other villains that we've had. Michael Keaton did a great job with the Vulture, but the Vulture was also, I think, written pretty good as well.
He was written well, and like there were twists in there.
And
that
Keaton's a veteran too, so if anybody can bring that to life.
Here, it's both. The writing is just very well done here, and it makes the character believable. You understand where he's coming from, and Michael B. Jordan just takes that material and excels.
That relating to his motives in terms of just that social upheaval, that anger that everyone's feeling right now, and just kind of an outlet for exactly disillusionment with the system and how it's just been that way for decades, particularly for African Americans, and just to see that play out in just one person and try to just push the envelope and just try to make something happen out of that, even if it's the wrong thing to do. People, I think, a part of everyone that can relate to that can see how he can do that. Can see how he can come close to doing what he's doing.
Yeah, and can we talk about too? I've said it before. I think Michael B. Jordan's one of the best actors working today. I think that guy is.
I agree.
The hardest working, at the very least, the hardest working.
I think he's 5 years. I'll tell you right now. I made this claim back in 2013, so I got to hold myself to it. I said in 2013, after watching Fruitvale Station, I said he's going to win an Oscar in the next 10 years, and I still stand by that.
He's on the road to it. Honestly,
I still stand by it. I mean, like another person that's along with him too, who's very similar. They acted together too. Is Miles Teller. He is great. Michael B. Jordan. They were in fantastic, and I think that he is great. Michael B. Jordan, and I think that he's such a great actor, and this time he can honestly give a really good villain performance because he's usually the protagonist in all of his movies. He's usually the protagonist. Fruitvale, he was obviously the main character. Creed, obviously main character. This time around, it was so cool to see him in the villain role, and you could tell he'd been wanting to play a villain for a while. Just the way he owned it in a lot of his scenes. So I think he gave the best performance in the movie. I really do.
I agree.
I think that not far behind him, though, I would say are Lupita Nyong'o and Letitia Wright.
Didn't Lupita Nyong'o win Best Supporting Actress?
She did. For 12 Years a Slave, she did. Yes. But Lupita Nyong'o and Letitia Wright. The only thing is, like I said, I know Michael B. Jordan and Lupita Nyong'o. I know they're great actors. Lupita Nyong'o, I mean, her character definitely felt, in line kind of with what she's done. You know what I mean? Not to take away anything. Michael B. Jordan definitely did something different, though, for him, which I like. But not far behind, I would say, Nyong'o and Letitia Wright. And, of course, Danai Gurira, too. I think they're three characters. Because they're not only the three female characters here, not only are they interwoven into the plot so nicely, but they're developed too.
Yeah,
and they're given a lot of, and they're given.
And you
good
understand where they stand on the whole issue. Should Wakanda help the rest of the world?
Yeah.
You get a feel for each one of them.
Yeah, because the important thing about this whole Wakanda debate, though, is that it's whether or not we're not going to get into this debate, you know what I mean, as a political thing too, but I mean one of the main themes in this movie, one of the most significant, is whether or not resource-rich societies have any kind of like moral or ethical obligation to share their riches with other countries in efforts to make a more like unified world. That's sort of the debate that kind of ranges on here. It reminded me a little bit of like Captain America Civil War in a way where it was like there's one big moral quandary at the center of this movie, and then they show characters that are all on the different spectrum. Civil War, I think, was a bit more bipartisan with the way that it handled that. But it's not to say that Black Panther isn't, you know. But you do get by the end of the movie, you do get a good solid feel of where the characters in this movie stand on what Wakanda's role in the larger world should be, which I think is really important.
And you know, speaking of actors, shout out to Chadwick Boseman for single-handedly playing some of the most iconic African Americans. Or sorry, not African Americans, but just I guess Black people in general. Just single-handedly kind of owning Black History Month in terms
Jackie
of just,
Robinson.
Yeah, Jackie Robinson, James Brown, and the Black Panther.
Yeah, really. Now, here's the. I'm going to say one of my points of criticism with this movie. Okay, I'm going to say this right now. One of my points of criticism with this, one of my very few. I'll tell you right now. By the end of this movie, and it's because there's so much that goes on through this, Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole, can't forget the other co-writer here, they put a lot in this movie, too. I even argue by the end they're starting to get into Black Panther 2 a little bit. I'd even argue by the end, especially with the relationship between Daniel Kaluuya's character and Lupita Nyong'o's character as well. I think there's a plot of that I think you probably could have tabled for the second film and really fleshed that out. But I'm going to say this, though. One of my few criticisms is I still think by the end of this movie, I still think that T'Challa's a bit of an enigma, or at least you don't really get a sense of his character outside of him assuming the throne and outside of what that title brings. I don't think he's as fleshed out as some of the supporting characters in this movie.
Yeah, I think with what many people are saying is, you know, I found everyone else more exciting than the Black Panther himself, which is funny because the movie's called Black Panther, and it does kind of take that. The narrative kind of takes that approach where it's going with T'Challa rather than looking at T'Challa.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, it's really strung that way.
I agree somewhat because it's like I care about the character. I like the whole like thing following him throughout this whole like struggle of him trying to find his place, what he wants to do with the country and everything, and dealing with this whole like attack on his country from Claw and then eventually Killmonger. It's like I rooted for him and everything, but I agree with you guys. Compared to everybody else, you don't really get to know more about him. It was kind of like we got introduced to him in Civil War, and then we have this movie now, and it's like we didn't really learn too much more about him. He's likable. He's a great hero. It's someone to look up to, of course, but you don't really learn anything more about him in his own movie.
And exactly. Compared to all the attention each other Marvel movie gets on all of its titular characters, Black Panther really spread it out amongst its world. Almost even Wakanda, you could say, is just a character in itself. Just that concept and how everyone's working towards it in some way.
Usually in these Marvel movies, like for the character's first movie, their origin stories, you emerge with at least a sound, you know, perspective on the main character, on the main hero. And I think that was, it caught me by surprise that it felt lessened here. You know, and I hate to say this too, but like Boseman is an actor, Chadwick Boseman is an actor. He's not a bad actor, but I can't help but feel that even in those movies that we just mentioned, 42 when he played Jackie Robinson, Get On Up with when he played James Brown, which I feel like nobody saw or remembered. 42 differently, but like I don't think anybody really saw Get On Up.
It got me to watch some original James Brown footage.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's fantastic.
No, I rented the greatest hits of James Brown after I watched that. But the thing is with Chadwick Boseman, I feel like even in starring roles, sometimes he kind of gets relegated to the background at some moments, even in his bigger movies. There's something about him where it's like he always seems to be one up by the supporting players. I don't know if he's had a hard time kind of establishing his own identity on screen.
Yeah, ironically enough, is that he's so good at playing other people, he can't do something. He can't make himself a character.
You know what I'm saying, though. I don't think I'm the only one on this. Whenever I see Boseman in a title role, it's not that he's a bad actor, but I always feel like there's always something that's going to overshadow him. In 42, I think it was the larger history and the other baseball players in that film that had good supporting roles. And I think in Get On Up, it was the music and the choreography.
Great job.
Yeah. He just felt like he was kind of lost at times. You know.
great job though. It's
Oh,
not
I'm
like
not
he's
saying
not
he
bad.
doesn't.
Yeah,
No,
this isn't any detraction on him. It's just it's everything else around him.
I just feel like he gets one upped a lot, and here too. I mean, you have like Michael B. Jordan, you have Lupita Nyong'o, you even have Daniel Kaluuya, who you could make the argument he's underused here. You got these bigger players who that I just feel like they make more of an impact, and then it's the fact that T'Challa, you learn about him largely through the role of him assuming the throne. That's what I think. That's what I think kind of works against him, at least in that sense, especially for this first movie, especially for this first effort.
I think he works better also because like I remember in Civil War he was like one of the people that stole the show for me along with like Spider-Man and Ant-Man.
Yeah, he was good in that.
It was like the time he was on screen I was like, wow, I cannot wait to see Black Panther and learn more about him. And it's like I saw Black Panther and it's like I didn't really learn more about him, but I still like him.
It's true. Yeah, he doesn't do anything to make him seem unlikable, but he does.
Yeah.
But there's just enough. There's enough lacking here where it's like, man, I really want to know more about him. You know what I mean?
Really do.
And I hope in the sequel, I hope in this next movie, I hope you really do kind of get a firmer grasp on him as a character and whatnot. That was one of my very few points of contention here.
I want to kind of switch gears a little bit,
Sure.
Shifting towards some of the music in this movie, which
I bought the soundtrack by the way.
yeah, you straight up bought the soundtrack.
I bought
okay.
it. I wanted to buy it.
It's like right after I saw Greatest Showman, I went out and got it. I rented this one. I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah.
But talk about the soundtrack though. It's very noteworthy.
Yeah, I should say I usually with films I usually tend to look towards more of the the original soundtrack as opposed to songs used in the movie, kind of like popular music, how it's used in movies.
Like Guardians, like their volume
sure,
mix.
exactly. Which is cool. You can make a couple comments there, but there's really not much you can say in terms of actual creation as opposed to just okay, we kind of mix this together. And I heard in terms of the soundtrack used in the movie, what were some tracks that they used in there? I think I heard like Kendrick Lamar made an
Pray
appearance.
for Me, which featured The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar, which is played in the casino scene. That's probably my favorite song on the album. All the Stars, which had Kendrick and RZA. I might be pronouncing that wrong.
I think it's SZA.
SZA, yeah, okay. X, which is like one of my favorite songs. There's a song that like that one is about Black Panther. Then there's a song about Killmonger. It's like
you got a great roster.
Yeah,
you got
Kendrick Lamar does a great job.
Sway Lee from Ray Shremmerd. This is where my hip hop knowledge comes in, contemporary hip hop knowledge. Sway Lee and Khalid are on a track as well. Vince Staples, Weeknd, like
Vince
you said.
Staples, yeah.
Vince Staples is on one too. Now I'll tell you right now, I'll probably start a fight over here. I really think I'm a firm believer. I think Kendrick Lamar is very overrated. Okay,
Overrated.
I think
okay.
he's very overrated. Okay, I think
Joe.
he's very overrated as a rapper. I don't think he's bad. I think he's overrated. But I'm gonna say this: he was the right person to choose for the bulk of the soundtrack. He was absolutely the right person. I'm not gonna say he's not talented. All I'm saying is I can name like there was at least 12 better albums than Damn last year. Okay, there was at least 12 better.
All right, before a fight breaks out in the studio, I'm also gonna shift now to the original.
Yeah, go on.
The OST.
Them's fighting words.
Which is, and I just really appreciate how there are some really good like motifs for all of these characters. Like every time Killmonger showed up, you got this like dark trap music going.
Yeah.
It's like, what is going on
like
here?
This future kind of like
Afrocentric too.
Yeah.
And then whenever
he had the drum kicks in it too. Yeah.
Whenever Michonne from The Walking Dead. I'm so sorry.
Danai Gurira.
That's the thing. There's a video by Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
You go on there and you could see Ryan Coogler breaks down the fight scene in the casino, and he makes a point that when it transitions to her character during the fight scene, you purposely start hearing the drums whenever her and her tribe is showing up.
That's the kind of stuff makes me want to go back and rewatch it again.
Yeah.
Or like I don't want to say yodeling, but it's like.
It's like a battle cry.
Yeah, exactly.
It transitions into the original soundtrack perfectly.
Yeah, and it shows up again when she fights again later in the movie, and it's like
it's not jarring at all. It's very smooth.
Yeah, and there's some of these overt, musical motifs and themes I really really enjoy, and every now and then a movie tries to do more obvious and overt themes and hints and whatever, and then it just winds up being like overwrought. But it's like, okay, we get it, too much on the nose.
We get it, yes.
But and there's a fine line between that and then too subtle, where it's overproduced and it's all hidden, and even like some. I mean, don't get me wrong. John Williams, literally the greatest, movie composer of the 20th century, and you can even say beyond. Iconic stuff. But some of his other work, there's a lot of subtlety in it that can be almost too subtle. And it's like, well, okay, what was really the theme there? It's and that's more of his later works, more like in Lincoln or and some other lesser known movies where he wasn't working with Spielberg. But here in this movie, do you know who did the original?
Who did the original score? The
here?
original score for Black Panther was done by. Oh God, this name! It's one of those composers.
We are horrible with names. In this movie.
Yeah, we are. Ludwig Göransson. I probably butchered that.
Close enough.
Ludwig Göransson. He's a Swedish composer. He's actually done all of Coogler's movies in the past. He did Creed. He did Fruitvale Station. He did that wonderful Jesse Eisenberg movie, 30 Minutes or Less.
Keep looking through movies. Keep looking through movies that he did. Did he do? This is just a complete shot in the dark. Did he do Sicario?
Did he do Sicario?
That may be another like.
No, I could have. He did not. I could have told you. I could have told you that because I know that the person who does a lot of Denis Villeneuve's movies, he usually comes aboard for most of his.
Because I know Sicario had a really like jarring.
Sicario was Johan Johannesson, who just died.
He died?
Yeah, Johan Johannesson. He just died.
He was supposed to work on Blade Runner, but he died, right?
Yeah, well, he died.
He was sick.
He did. Whatchamacallit? He did. He was sick. I don't know if he was sick during it or whatnot. Yeah, they used Hans Zimmer for Blade Runner.
Man.
He literally just died. I think it was 2 weeks ago.
Sicario
composer.
I'm sorry, I just learned about that just now, so sorry if this is like complete 180 from Black Panther talk. But man, look up if you're talking like good OSTs, like look at the bridge scene.
Oh
in
my
Sicario,
God,
yeah,
where it's like, and it's like just these like. I don't know, 20 horns or something. I don't know what it is. Just bearing down on this film, and it's so good.
Johansson was such a talent. That was probably the best thing in Sicario. I think was the music. Mm-hmm. I think that was the best thing in the music. But with Black Panther, I really think that the soundtrack of this, like I said, we're talking. I mean, we're talking. You could talk the OST, and you can even talk the actual music and stuff in this too. I mean, the soundtrack in this is great on both levels. It intensifies things. It does pretty much what you want a soundtrack to do, especially the way, like you were talking about one of the key introduction scenes in the battle scene too. The way that it is interwoven together. It feels smooth. It doesn't feel jarring in any way, like it could have. Because it's used for character introductions.
Real quick, going back to we were just talking about the casino scene briefly. Yeah. That becomes like that whole scene and like the scenes leading up to that. For as you were saying, it kind of reminds you of a spy film. And
honestly, where did that come from?
Honestly, thinking back to it, it's like, wow, they somehow got like a whole spy film to fit in Black Panther, and it didn't fit. I mean, it didn't feel out of place at all for me.
I'm still a lone defender, but I mean, this is cheap, but compare it to the casino scene in Last Jedi, just in the way that felt in the narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like this, I mean, this did not feel jarring at all. It felt, and because you're right, it switches tone there. It becomes more espionage in a way.
Yeah, and it transitions perfectly fine.
I mean, it does. I mean, I could only imagine like some of the skepticism, like from the people working on it, maybe on the page. But I mean, the way they get it to flow and it adds to the narrative, it doesn't feel like a diversion or anything.
It's funny because when Black Panther's sister starts introducing all these gadgets, and I'm like,
it's Q.
This is feeling a lot like Q from James Bond. We're in a casino. It's they're fighting and they're on a spy. What?
Car chase.
Yeah, there's a car chase. Like, what's going on here?
I mean, for anybody who thinks that Idris Elba, like a black James Bond could never work. This movie is a perfect example. Like it could work.
Absolutely.
Idris Elba, the smoothest man in Hollywood right now, or like coming out of Britain at least.
I love it. That's the only thing I think in casting wise this movie missed was.
He's already in 4. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Unless if they want
to. See, I didn't even know.
To play because he's like a refined British gentleman. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I don't think he can. I don't think he could have played that youthful side of Black Panther.
Well,
I think he's mean like a side character.
I think he meant like a side character.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Hell
no,
yeah.
I was gonna say because you have like Forrest Whitaker in here, who's like 56. I was thinking like a Forrest Whitaker kind of character.
Who's going full Forrest Whitaker in this movie?
Yeah, he's very.
I wonder if Idris Elba's honestly so mad. He's like, I should have held out for Marvel longer.
Just like I said, I hate to say this, but one of my favorite rappers, Montana of 300, always says, "Don't think too hard about this." And then I lay low like Forrest Whitaker. Think about that. Anyway, no, I love Forrest Whitaker. He's a tremendous talent, and I think he's used very well here because he kind of brings that like nobility, age, legacy side to Wakanda that it needs. I think let's talk about before we even. I don't want to lose this. Let's talk about how gorgeous Wakanda looks in this thing.
God, yes.
The visual effects, which are very diverse here. They use green screen. There's practical effects. There's CGI. There's like I said, there's computer generated landscapes and stuff. Mm-hmm. I say 95% of this thing looks really good. There's some moments of green screen where it's like you can kind of tell, and I think there's some moments of green screen where it's like you can kind of tell in points that it's like it didn't look amazing, but those are very minority moments.
There's that, and there's also, it comes in the climax of the battle. Some of the CGI looks really bad, honestly, even from Marvel.
Yeah, there are some.
And like when Black Panther's like moving around really fast, you could tell, like, it was kind of the problem I had with Spider-Man Homecoming as well. The suit looked faked during those moments where he's moving very quickly, like jumping from the first floor to the second floor, like jumping across a battlefield.
I was getting some Green Lantern flashbacks where they just animated that.
You went that far. Wow.
Yeah, like maybe not that bad, but it's approaching that, or even like prequel level, where the whole Star Wars prequel level, where it's just like saturated in CGI.
Yeah,
and you can tell. That's the key, is that you can tell.
It's pretty bad for Marvel standards, and I don't know if it's because they got their best special effects workers right now
Infinity
working
War.
on Infinity War, because they're like, that movie's gonna take place in space. We need that to look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I still think, by and large, the visuals here are good.
Oh yeah, Wakanda itself looks beautiful.
Yeah,
and the production team. Sorry, but the production team really did their homework. There's a lot of like kind of mini documentaries or like behind the scenes stuff where. Then the production company really did their homework in terms of like going back to going to Africa and like straight up looking at tribes, looking at tribal headwear, looking at cultural references throughout most of architecture even, and how wardrobe architecture even, and how because Africa is such a diverse continent. Like Egypt
culturally diverse.
Exactly. Egypt is in Africa. Like people forget that. Yeah, South Africa is like also has like straight up white people as well. Yeah. Nigeria is completely different from Morocco, which is
different from Chad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? And like even Black Panther alludes to that as well with its various tribes. It's got the mountain people, it's got the mining people,
and each one of them looks very distinctly.
Very distinct.
The clothing or just like how their tribe is, like, just very distinctively different from Chadwick Boseman's tribe.
The tribe with the discs in their lips.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, okay.
Which happens a few moments. It's jarring. But I mean, and I'm not going to pretend I'm the most culturally, versed person in the room, or even, you know what I mean, to begin with. But I think that there's undoubtedly, especially in America, very ethnocentric mindsets and stuff like that. That there are people that just think of Africa as just sort of like, this one continent,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Predominantly black, probably, you know what I mean? In that continent, there's real diversity in that continent. There's real diversity. There's diversity within even communities too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think it's portrayed here. It's not portrayed like with puff. You know what I mean? To kind of bloat the movie up and make it look, you know what I mean? Make it look a certain way, just for the sake of that. I think that you could tell there's a lot of respect given here, and there's a lot of attention to detail, like you said. They actually did their homework. I can't believe it, but we're already at that time right now. We got to start giving final thoughts. We got to start giving.
Oh man, really?
We got to start giving final thoughts.
I think
have to just be the rest of the show.
I feel bad critiques at like during. that like during my final review,
That's
which comes out of
That's
nowhere.
gonna happen to me. So like the whole time we've been like talking positively, people are probably like, it's gonna be 4 stars, right? And it's like I'm gonna throw these last critiques, and it's gonna be like,
I hate doing that.
Let's do it. Let's do it though. We'll start with Joe. Give your final thoughts on Black Panther overall as a movie.
Okay, overall, I really enjoyed this movie. It has been made clear throughout the entire review. I think all of us did. It's a great return to the MCU. It's a great return to the character of Black Panther. Even though we talked about it, we didn't get to learn more about him, but we got to learn about his world, and we were sold on that, and it was amazing. I love all the side characters in this movie, especially his sister and Michael B. Jordan's character, Killmonger. I think he was the best villain they've had so far in the Marvel Universe, and he's the best character in the film. I love the look of the film. My critiques, though, come from the climax of this movie. 1, I feel like it becomes the typical comic book climax, and then 2, the CGI doesn't look great. There's a Han Solo moment in here where a character says, I'm not going to help you. And then, of course, he shows up in the end. Like, it becomes very cliched in the climax. And everything else was feeling so good. My other criticism is where, like, everything else was feeling so good. My other criticism is I kind of felt like the first 20 minutes were a bit slow. It was building up itself. It was like getting started. And then finally, once they got into Wakanda and we started getting to see the gadgets, the tribes, is when the film really started to pick up for me. Other than that, though, I really like this movie a lot. I look at this as kind of like the Captain America movies, where back like the first movie's outing, I liked a lot. And I can't wait to return back to the character. Where like I think they can take it with the sequel job with Captain America, with Winter Soldier and Civil War, and do a tremendous job with them compared to the first one. I think you could do the same thing with Black Panther, where you sold me this world so really good and these characters. I can't wait to see where it goes in the future. But with those critiques, we didn't get to learn about Black Panther too much. Climax was a bit cliche for me, and I thought it had a slow start. For me, it's about 3 stars, but it is a very enthusiastic 3 stars out of 4.
I'm going to have to piggyback on a lot of stuff you just said. I'll go here, and then, of course, I don't want to leave out Dominic because he's got some thoughts, too. I can see him brewing. I really agree with what you said. Black Panther movie, even as, in my opinion, is still very much a Marvel movie, even as different as it is. I mean, it's different, but it's still very much a Marvel movie. It's marked by a lot of CGI, like we said, kind of at the tail end. Some of it looks amazing. Other instances, it shows how artificial it is. It still ends with that big battle sequence too. And I even said towards the end, it starts to feel like it's getting into Black Panther 2 a little bit by the ending of it, especially when it comes between like W'Kabi and Nakia and that relationship too. I think that there's instances that they probably could have tabled until the second film. Having said that, though, we get a really good sense of the world here. We get a really good sense of Wakanda. We get a really good sense of the ensemble cast that's in this film as well. That's very good. It's dense. It's layered. It feels authentic. It feels lived in, which I think is really important here. You have an outstanding Michael B. Jordan. You have a great supporting cast of strong Black women in this movie too. Lupita Nyong'o, like I said, Danai Gurira as well, and then of course Letitia Wright from Black Mirror. There's a lot of good characters in here too. I wish we learned more about T'Challa. I wish Chadwick Boseman felt like a bit more of a presence here than he does. I think he's kind of sometimes, sidelined by the strength of the supporting cast. But I think overall, there's very little to complain about Black Panther that does any kind of significant damage to the fact that this is very enjoyable. It is very exhilarating at times, and there's a lot of good to come out of this talent-wise, visual. I give it a very. We're talking about music as well. I'm gonna go with your rating as well. I give it a very enthusiastic 3 out of 4 stars. Dominic, that leaves you. Your thoughts on Black Panther?
I was talking with a friend who also saw the movie over the weekend. We saw it in separate viewings, and I was like, "Hey, man, what do you think about it?" And he was like, "It sucks because what were the stakes in that movie?" In terms of characters, specifically characters. I mean, obviously, the Wakanda is always in danger. We knew that. The world's always in danger. That's always going to happen in a Marvel movie, in a superhero movie of this caliber.
Ethical dilemma, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But what are the stakes in terms of... So, spoiler alert of Black Panther. Is he okay? So, spoiler alert, Black Panther lives in this movie, which should become that's
if you saw the trailer for
Infinity War, he's gonna live. Exactly. Okay, what were the stakes in Guardians of the Galaxy 2? like, oh, the world is in danger of like literally being, or like the universe is in danger of being consumed by this by this god.
Too bad later this year we're getting Homecoming and Thor.
Yeah. So it's like, exactly. So the stakes are always kind of which is such an incredibly high level, like either a protagonist death, like straight up name of the movie, protagonist death, or the universe or the world is in danger of being just completely wiped out. And it's like, well, if you just keep if it's like that is constantly your the danger, but it never comes to that. It's either all or nothing. Of course, we're not gonna lose that much.
Which side note, if I can just add this in real quick, it's what makes me appreciate Civil War's ending, because it's not about saving the whole world. It's an end to a friendship, and it makes that really impactful.
True, and it has some
that carries weight.
I didn't even think about that. That's especially true, and it has some more character focus. My friend went to The Dark Knight, and how it's like, okay, in Dark Knight Rises, Gotham is literally
got a nuke.
It's got a nuke, right? So it's like that's the stake, and you can kind of they're not gonna nuke Gotham, of course not. But in Dark Knight, it's who's in. Well, lots of people are in danger. Don't get me wrong, but is the city itself in danger? Are there like high profile? He gonna be safe up in here? Batman is gonna be safe, but is he gonna be safe up in here? Like in his mind. Psyche, in his mind. Break.
There's a mental battle.
Yeah, exactly. It's this character fight. Like, is the Joker gonna break
Batman?
Is he gonna break other characters? And you really don't know. Yeah. And on a first viewing, you don't know.
Going off of that climax, I mean, you have him like, there's a bomb on the prisoner boat and there's a bomb on the civilian boat, and the detonator is given to both sides, and the Joker's like, let's play a game.
And the movie has built itself in a way where it's like, I really felt one of those boats could have exploded, and a lesson could have been learned there, or a lesson could have been taught. So, but then you going back to Black Panther, where in this kind of really bad CGI setting, like it's this one-on-one fight between the protagonist and the antagonist.
Yeah.
Which is like, really, I'm going back to Star Wars prequels level here, or like Green Lantern. It is soaked in CGI. It is not looking good. And anyway, I'm starting to over harp now, where I go overboard. But yeah, so that's really what brings me back to giving it like a 4-star rating or a 3.5-star rating. So I not to piggyback off you guys, but I'll also give it 3 out of 4 stars, which is funny.
It's better.
I also gave one back on it,
and you said this is better.
but this is better.
Yeah.
But like I don't think ratings are concrete in that way. So you can give movies same ratings while also judging them differently.
No, so. I would absolutely agree with that. It was a great discussion, gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 3 short minutes, because we got Fantasy Movie League to talk about, and then we got, of course, whenever it comes a Marvel movie, we usually have to then talk about the box office haul. And there's a lot to talk about with Black Records. It's broke. It's many records broken. We're going to give you a quick rundown of all the records it's broken. With Steve, keep it locked. This means going forward. It's all coming up and more on Sleepless with Steve. Keep it locked.
Cutting edge. Pure rock radio. Cutting edge. WONC, Naperville, Chicago.